but we do start in Detroit, where an expanded curfew for minors met with some opposition. Initially, the Detroit Police Department proposed a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew, not only for the annual fireworks celebration, but also for the 3 nights of the River Days Festival. The ACLU, the NAACP, and some parents felt the extended curfew was not only unfair, but unconstitutional. So now Detroit City Council is considering an alternate plan. It calls for a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew only on fireworks night. An 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew would be in effect during River Days and only in the areas near the riverfront. And that is where we begin our discussion tonight with MiWeek contributors Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Gentlemen, it's always good to see you as we're heading into the summer months, right?
We are in summer.
Feels like summer.
I know. It feels good. And the kids are getting out of school. Kids are getting out of school this week.
We're doing a show next week, poolside.
That'll be good. That's right. We'll round up all the gear and we'll get
Gotta
poolside.
have drinks, umbrella drinks.
All right, I can work on that. Okay, but hey, let's talk a little bit about the curfew situation here. The curfew has always been in effect now for the last, I mean, how long, Stephen, in terms of around the fireworks?
On fireworks night, that goes back a long time.
Does it?
That,
I'm not
yeah,
sure how far it goes back.
At least 5 or 6, maybe 7 years. I mean, I feel like the first year I was back in Detroit, 2007, was the year that there was a lot of sort of misbehavior, you know, I mean, really just rambunctiousness more than anything else. And I feel like it was the next year that they started the curfew, at least on fireworks night, just to make sure that didn't happen again.
All right, so now that the Detroit Police Department came out and said, okay, not only we want this curfew again that we've had for some time now, we want to expand it around the River Days. What is some of the concern here, Nolan?
Well, I mean, it has a bad feeling to me. I mean, you can certainly enhance safety by building a wall around downtown and saying no kids, you know, no teenagers can come downtown for these 4 days. But it has the feeling to me of, you know, let's keep this downtown safe for the suburbanites, safe for the outsiders who are coming in. These are very exciting city events, and city children should be able to participate. Now, you have to balance that desire off against a very real concern that unsupervised teenagers, when they group up, do cause problems and can cause some serious problems. And I think the police went a little too heavy on, you know, we're going to do what we can to keep things safe, and not thinking about how we make this a very inclusive event. Let the city kids participate. I wrote this past Sunday that, you know, 2 years ago when they were rounding these kids up who were down there without parents. They're like 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, just got on a bus, came downtown to see the fireworks, and they were packing them in paddy wagons. The kids were scared, the kids were crying. Meanwhile, all these little white kids walking past them on their way to the river. The optics of that, the message it sent, I thought was just terrible.
So is the difference of that because you saw the kids were by themselves versus kids with their parents?
Oh, I think that's part of it, but I think it's also, you know, I would like to back it up just a little and talk about how putting the onus of managing this issue on the police is part of the problem. That the inclusiveness issue in this region is not about fireworks night, and it's not about curfews. It is about the general feel of who belongs now in Detroit and who does not. And those are the things that we need to be talking about, not on fireworks night, but generally about how to change the tenor of what's happening in the city. And to put it all on the police department to say, well, you just can't do what you think you need to do on fireworks night is somewhat unfair, because if something does happen on fireworks night, guess who's going to get blamed? It'll be DPD for letting it happen or letting it get out of control, and it's a big crowd. I mean, if something does start to happen in the middle of that crowd, it's really hard to respond.
But why not take a sort of a devil's night approach to this? I mean, when the city had that problem, I mean, it mobilized and found different answers to, you know, it engaged the community. Why not engage the community here? Why not all the community groups, churches, other organizations say, look, we know there are kids who don't have parents able or willing to get them downtown. We're going to have volunteers, we're going to have community groups, buses. We're going to bring these kids down, take responsibility for them, and let them enjoy the fireworks so we don't have 200 kids end up
Right.
you know, at the police headquarters on that Monday night.
Well, and
So
again,
who engages the community? And when you say the community, you said specifically church groups, but who starts the conversation? And there you go.
You don't need to, you know, you don't need some formal effort. Anybody can raise their
Anyone
hand
can
and
do it.
say, you know, there's 10 kids in our church. Let's 3 of us get together and take them down. Or there's 5 kids on our block. You can join us.
well, and why doesn't, you know, why can't you get some of the corporate community involved in that? Why isn't DDP, who manages downtown, you know, 364 nights a year, other than the fireworks, why not get them out in the neighborhoods to engage? How do we get kids in the city downtown for the fireworks in a way that's safe for them and for you know, for everybody else? I mean, most, you know, there's not a lot of people coming down to the fireworks to start trouble. They're coming downtown to see the fireworks, and the assumption, I think, that gets made about black kids and black kids in groups is really dangerous, and again, is part of this larger inclusivity question that we have. You know, we've got to start getting more comfortable with the idea that there's going to be a lot of people in downtown, in and around downtown. There's going to be black people, there's going to be white people, and we all got to sort of function together. Otherwise, this is not going to work.
Now, one of the problems is, I mean, it is a late night event. Those fireworks wrap up 11:30, and you don't want kids of any color, 12, 13, 14-year-old, downtown unsupervised at that hour. But it's an easy, I mean, to me, it's an easy fix. If folks step up and say, you know, these kids want to go to the fireworks just like any other kids. Let's make sure they get down there.
Well, City Council has to take a look at their alternate plan sometime next week, and hopefully they'll be voting on that then. But I do want to bring up a point that you said. Well, it doesn't have to be organized by anyone. You know, people from churches and community groups. So I do think you have to have a concerted effort. That's got to come from somewhere. And where does that come? Does that come from the mayor's office? Does it come from the police department? Who steps up and says, you know what, I'm pointing on you, and I'm asking you, and I'm telling you that I need you to come and do this?
I don't know. I mean, it's a question for the mayor to some extent. I think what was the planning? What was the planning for this, right? I mean, it does seem like this curfew came out of nowhere at the last minute. They just said, oh, we're going to have a curfew for all of these nights. That's not the way to deal with it. Why not have started a couple months ago, trying to think about how to get kids in the city, downtown, and to participate in this stuff?
I think it spins off something we haven't heard a whole lot about, but the growing concern about the Riverwalk and that riverfront. When the state took over Belle Isle, it pretty much ended the parties there. You know, it gets people out at a certain hour. You know, it cracks down on drinking and everything. The state has really sort of closed the environment on Belle Isle, and a lot of the folks who used to go to Belle Isle and party in the evening, what have you, hang out, are moving to the riverfront, and they've had some incidents. They've had to step up security and what have you, and I believe this grew out of concerns about that, and that's why they extended it to the 4 days. But, you know, this is, again, the biggest summer festival in Detroit, and you're going to tell Detroit kids, you're not really welcome.
Part of it, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's problematic, and you can't do that. We can't send that message, particularly at this time when we are having a conversation about, again, who's being included and who's not. And again, I think you got to get back to what are some of the solutions to making downtown feel more inclusive? What are the solutions to making sure more people are participating? And you can't do it in the sort of heat of the moment when, you know, the fireworks date is barreling down on everybody, and DPD is rightly concerned that, look, they'll be blamed if something goes wrong.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, you could also flood that riverfront with volunteers to keep eyes on kids.
Yep.
I mean, red t-shirted, green t-shirted, whatever. I mean, you could put a lot of people who aren't police on the river, just like we do on Angels.
And then there was a question, what was that, last year or 2 years ago, about the need for, I mean, pretty much the entire department is necessary to patrol downtown.
The entire downtown area for the fireworks.
Night, which, you know, is mostly to patrol people who are not Detroiters. Most of the people who are downtown are coming from other places, and so there was a question about, well, why shouldn't some of these other communities perhaps chip in to pay for that? I mean, the cost of the overtime that night, I think, is always an issue in the city. That went nowhere. But again, that's a bigger conversation about how we do things together around here that you got to have outside the context of emergency.
Christine, the NAACP is sort of working this week to try to find alternatives to the curfew, or ways to sort of ease the impact of the curfew by engaging the community, by engaging volunteers. And we'll see, maybe they get something started this year that can grow next.